we're talking about modern guys now. I want to get your take on who are the best arm wrestlers that maybe not of all time, but that you have competed against. Who's the hard? I mean, I've seen you have some amazing matches with different athletes, and you seem to. John Brzenk, when you went up against John and you almost destroyed him. That was probably the passing, of the torch. But
yeah,
who are your top 3 or 4 or 5 guys that you've arm wrestled?
I think that you cannot talk about arm wrestling without talking about John Brzenk. John Brzenk was right at the top for basically 30 years. If he wasn't the best in the world, he was basically the best in his weight category. Every once in a while, there was a guy who'd come up who was that next level of strength that John didn't really want to touch too much. And he'd just be like, okay, well, I'm still the best at my weight. Yeah. He was basically, he's the gold standard to which all arm wrestling is kind of measured by. Yeah. And he really was the guy that my generation kind of watched and learned from. And what John taught everybody is that if you want to be good at arm wrestling, you have to arm wrestle, which seems like such an obvious thing, right? But at the time, a lot of strong guys would just think that they could arm wrestle. And obviously, it's like anything. You need to train specifically for it. And yeah, so John was kind of recognized as the best guy before myself. I really like to talk about Denis because what he represents is how far you can take it. To me, it just blew my mind how strong he was. Like,
is he the strongest man you've ever been against? Then, would you say, for arm wrestling?
Yes, I think so. Now, with me, throughout my career, typically, if someone was to beat me, they would beat me quickly, or if I was ever allowed to get all my positions set. A lot of the hard part in arm wrestling is at the beginning. You start with your wrists straight, your shoulders square, and nobody's really at their strongest at that point. And everybody's trying to fight to make the other person uncomfortable and for you to get comfortable. And I've always found that if I actually am able to get to my comfortable position, that typically I feel good. But Denis allowed me at some point during the match to get comfortable, and he still just.
Do you think we'll be able to see him come back? Obviously,
I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. I think the thing that I say about Denis is, he's gotten to a place that few human beings will ever see, ever. And people say, "Oh, Denis is done." Denis, I really think that this weaker form of Denis is still stronger than almost everybody still. So to say that Denis is done, I think is just a crazy idea. I think he's kind of done it. Like, what he has done will be very hard to replicate. Is he capable of doing it again? I don't know. It very much comes down to his own motivation.
Yeah. It's difficult. I guess when you've been there and done it all, it is hard, especially if then you're coming back from such illness. But he was a genuine freak of nature.
Oh my God. I remember like the first time I met him and we're gripping up, and this is just an exhibition, like beforehand when they're doing the pre-fight photos. And I'm looking at his arm, I'm looking at his bicep, and I'm like, that is a glute. It's not a bicep, it's a freaking glute in his like, it's like he had the equivalent musculature in his arm to what a lot of athletes will have in their hips.
Yeah.
Like, just ridiculous. Yeah, so that was really cool. There's a lot of great guys in the sport. I've been lucky. I've gotten to meet a lot of them. I do like to look to the future. I do like to look to what's coming. I think a guy to keep your eye on, like people are talking about Levon. I do think that at some point, this guy Vitaly Larratt might be the next champion. It's hard.
I've seen a lot of people talking about him. I've obviously seen him,
Yeah.
athlete. Is there any Americans or Canadians that you think are worth looking out for?
Well,
putting you on the spot a bit, really, but
yeah, no. I think in Canada, I think that there's kind of three of us in the super heavyweight who are relevant on the world level. There's Matt Mask, Ryan Espy, and myself. In USA, I would say that the top three are currently Michael Todd, Dave Chafee, and Jerry Cataret. I think that those will be your top picks for USA. There's a lot of people coming up, but arm wrestling, typically it takes time. So you normally get to track a person, and I don't see somebody today who I'm worried about taking the super heavyweight crowns from any of those names in North America.
Okay. While you're here, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my awesome strength content.